What's up, y'all? Gerald here, creator of Gospel Chops and your host for this YouTube channel, back with another video. My fellow Americans, on this date, January 19th, the year of our Lord 2024, our nation is under attack. That's right. If you look at the border, if you look at what's going on in Texas and Arizona and even California, our politicians that we have elected to abide by the Constitution of the United States have sold us out, y'all. And our enemies, both foreign and domestic, have figured out for some time now that our elected politicians are nothing but greedy individuals out for their own personal gain, from mayors to governors to congressmen to senators to presidential cabinet members. And in this case, the president himself, who has taken money from foreign enemies of this country. Well, let me ask you this, y'all. If you took a look over at your front door right now, is it closed or open? Is it locked or unlocked? Because the border of the United States is the doorway to America. That's why Donald Trump said he was going to build a great wall, but it would have a beautiful door. I want you to check out this video of Tom Homan, a longtime official in charge of guarding America's border, and see what he has to say about this current administration. And after that, I'll play another video because I really want you to see what happens when you leave your door unlocked, when you leave your door wide open in a time of turmoil for anyone to come and go as they please. Y'all check this out.
I started my career in immigration enforcement in 1984 as a Border Patrol agent. I've worked for 6 presidents, up to Donald Trump. Every president I've ever worked for took some steps to secure the border because they understood you can't have strong national security if you don't have border security. But President Biden is the first president in history of this nation that I know of who came in office and unsecured a border on purpose. And even President Obama gave me the Presidential Rank Award, highest award available. Because what was I doing at the time? I was locating and deporting people that are in the country illegally. So we went from the most secure border of my lifetime, and it's not just my opinion, I've done this for 34 years. Anybody can go to cbp.gov, look at the data. We handed this administration the most secure border in my lifetime. And within months, we went from the most secure border to historic illegal immigration, numbers we've never seen before. And it's not because it's seasonal, it's not because of climate change, it's not because of Trump. This is by design. We already heard about some of these people are coming because of economic reason or natural disasters. The bottom line is, when you claim asylum, you must be escaping fear and persecution from your home government because your race, religion, and political affiliation, or membership in a particular social group. That is not the fact. If you look at immigration court data over the last 10 years, you'll see that nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum at the border never get relief from U.S. courts that simply don't qualify. But they're coming and staying because of Biden's promises. I wrote an op-ed 6 months before the election. I said, President Biden becomes president, we'll lose the border, based on the promises he was making during the campaign. And he's kept those promises. Right now, we have record numbers of illegal aliens coming across the border. Catch and release is rampant. Right now, Secretary Mayorkas already said 85% of everybody coming to the border is being released in the country. They're not being detained. And why are they being detained? Because of 2 reasons. Number one, because he knows, like I do, that vast majority of these people will be ordered removed 5, 6, 7 years down the road, maybe 10. He also knows the Homeland Security Life Cycle Report says if you get an order removal and you're in an ICE bed, you get removed 99% of the time. But if you're not in detention, your chances of being removed are slim. If you're a family unit, it's about 6%. That's why they're releasing them. Thousands of empty ICE beds sitting there right now, already paid for by the taxpayer. They'd rather release them because they know the vast majority will lose their case and they'll be ordered removed, but if they're not in detention, they won't be removed. So this administration comes up with what they call lawful pathways, which I think are illegal, and I think they'll lose when the decision of the courts come out. The CBP One app, 95.8% are approved. Where's the case-by-case analysis that is supposed to be done for people for a parole? It's not being done. It's a shell game. They move people, they move thousands to the port of entry so they can claim less illegal entries between the port of entries, but it's failed. Because November to December, we saw record amounts of crossings on the border, over 300,000 just in December. And people who say that the border is not in crisis, I tell you this, in 2020, the total encounters on the southwest border is 646,000. This year, 3.2 million, 5 times what we saw during last year's Trump administration. Court orders are years out, but this administration's counting on it. You overflow the system. It'll push these court dates back 7, 8 years. And what's going to happen? Mark my word. When they finally get order removal 7 years down the road, they'll have a USC child. They'll have 2 USC children. They'll get phone calls from, the director of ICE will get phone calls from the Hill saying, why'd you remove that person with 2 USC kids? Well, he didn't have 2 USC kids when he entered the country legally. So now that he has 2 USC kids, he's immune from the law. The court order means nothing. So here's what I'm looking for. If for people who demand these people have a right to claim asylum, they have a right to due process. I agree. But due process doesn't mean anything if the final decision of the courts is not executed and people aren't removed. So if it takes 5 or 6 years, they still must be removed, or the system means nothing. I've been attacked numerous times because I worked with President Trump. They said our policy is inhumane. I've been called a racist and a bigot by members of Congress. But let's get one thing straight. Under President Trump, illegal immigration went to a 45-year low, 83% decline in illegal immigration. There's been several studies saying 31% of women that make that journey through cartels get sexually assaulted. So let me ask you a question. I'll make a point. When 83% less people are coming, how many migrants didn't die crossing the border when 83% less were coming? How many people didn't die? How many people off the terror screening database didn't try to come to the country because Border Patrol's 100% vigilant on the line and now overwhelmed? How many women and children didn't get sex trafficking to the United States, forced into sex slavery, forced labor, debt bondage? How many billions did the criminal cartels not make? Under President Biden, where they call this humane, over 1,700 migrants have died on U.S. soil, historic record, not counting the Darien Gap in Mexico and Central America. 112,000 Americans dying from fentanyl, historical increase in sex trafficking, forced labor, and debt bondage. Almost 100,000 missing kids that were released by ORR. 440,000 unaccompanied children entered the country through the service of the cartels. Someone needs to explain to me how that's humane, any of this stuff. And a record number of people off the terrorist watch list being arrested. 1.9 million gotaways. That statement alone should convince anybody on either side, 1.9 million gotaways, the border is not secure. It's ridiculous to claim so.
Y'all, did you hear the statistic about the substantial amount of women who make the trek and are raped along the way? Y'all bear with me. I'm on these folks' platform, so I gotta behave. But can you imagine, with millions upon millions of military-aged men without families coming across the border on their own, young bulls, young studs? Can you imagine what happens to a society where millions upon millions of these young men are unleashed upon society? It's even been stated that these folks can't get along in the migrant camps. Why? Because they come from so many different countries. They speak so many different languages. They don't get along. They don't communicate in a common language. And they're having problems. Fights are breaking out. Well, imagine what happens when these folks land on American soil. They don't speak the language. They don't know the culture. They are bringing cultural norms from wherever they came from. All these, over 100 different countries. And they just plopping them down in your nice, pretty suburb where they can meet you at the Target. They can meet you at the Verizon store, meet you at Walmart. Those places you might frequent in your nice, pretty community won't be pretty for much longer. But California has its own problems, and I speak of this because I am a native Californian. And out of all the problems that California has with homelessness and migration and illegal activity, what this next story exemplifies is the thing of nightmares brought upon us by our elected officials. Yeah, they left the door wide open. Let anybody come in who wanted to come in from wherever across the world. Y'all, do you know that America has enemies? Just as if you left your door open, some of your enemies might pop up and waltz right through your front door. Well, some people are waltzing through the door of America and setting up shop to enact our demise. And unfortunately, our politicians are doing nothing. Check this out, y'all.
Including this next story, the House Select Subcommittee on China that you're a part of says it found pathogens labeled HIV and Ebola inside a secret, illegal Chinese-owned biolab in California. Here's an important moment from the hearing you took part in earlier this week. Watch.
How many of these labs exist throughout the country? We don't know that. There could be more Reedley, Californias around the country.
Every elected official in this country should be concerned about whether an illicit lab with dangerous infectious substances could be hiding in their community.
It has been almost a year since the discovery of the illegal lab, and we are still working to remove the chemicals and illegal medical devices on site.
You asked the main question, Congressman, are there more of these in a city or town near you? But there are a lot of other questions. Why do the Chinese have a lab like this on U.S. soil to begin with? What possible reason could there be for having these pathogens in society in the first place? And why did the FBI and CDC choose initially not to investigate? So many questions, Congressman.
Yes, we absolutely have way more questions than answers at this point. It's very concerning. My thanks go out to the very observant code enforcement officer, Harper in Reedley, California, for paying attention to something that was out of the ordinary and discovering this. But it certainly has pointed out many gaps in our ability to make sure that these kind of things don't exist in our country and what kind of investigative procedures should be taken. How does this happen where a known criminal from another country comes into the United States illegally and opens up this lab and buys all of these biological pathogens that could pose a threat to public safety? A lot of questions, way more questions than answers at this point. I'm so glad that our committee is being able to look at this, investigate this, so we know what kind of actions to take to prevent these kind of things from happening throughout the country. We have to respond to this.
Yeah, the Chinese fly a spy balloon over mainland USA. Yeah. They have police stations in New York City run by the CCP, and now they're running labs. None of this makes sense. Thanks to you for trying to get to the bottom of it. Congressman Dan Newhouse, have a great weekend.
Y'all, did you hear this? An illegal immigrant from China comes into America, buys an old warehouse in the middle of the country. He didn't go to the city. He didn't go to the Bay. He didn't go to the LA. He went to Reedley, California, in the middle of nowhere, where he thought he would not be suspected. Buys an old warehouse and sets up a biochem lab, y'all. When they found the lab, there were chemical agents inside labeled dengue fever, Ebola, HIV. And you're developing these things right in the middle of America. Wow. Our government cannot protect us. Our politicians are feckless and useless. So when you see me advocate for a certain politician on this platform, on this channel, take it with a grain of salt and understand that even as I vote for certain people, I really have an understanding of the big picture of what's going on. Eddie Murphy once said, and I'm paraphrasing, he once said, if it's determined that I must have a foot up my butt, the only question is who has the smallest shoe? And that's how I look at politics. So when you see me advocate for a certain person, I'm looking for who has the smallest shoe. But I understand on a serious level that we as a nation are in trouble. Those that we have appointed and elected to uphold the Constitution and secure this nation have failed in their duties and left us to our own devices. So if you think like I think and you believe like I believe, you better get you some bigger devices. so that you can withstand the threat that faces this nation. Y'all like the video? Subscribe to the channel and share the video so we can get more people involved in the conversation, y'all. And like I always say, always remember and never forget, without the gospel, it's just chops. Until next time, peace.